Welcome to the TravelPulse podcast. Here's your host, Mark Murphy.
Yes, you got Mark Murphy again this week on the TravelPulse podcast. It's the podcast of all things travel and the intersection of travel, politics, finance, you name it. Now, what a lot of people don't realize, they don't realize that travel, when you think of all of the jobs it touches, it basically is the largest employer in the world. That's because if you go to a restaurant, get in a taxi, take an Uber, take a Lyft, those people are all connected to the travel industry. Now, they may not think of themselves as a travel industry employee because they're not flying planes and they're not, doing tours as a guide, etc. But indeed, travel impacts them economically in a very big way. And travel, of course, economically impacts every place that welcomes tourists. And it can be everything from a small town to a large city to an entire country. Travel changes people's lives, changes the world, and is a huge positive, and then in some cases a negative, depending on how it's managed. But this week, the news was pretty interesting because, you go to San Antonio, you do the Alamo, you go to the aquarium, you steal a shark. Yeah, you steal a shark. That actually happened this past week. 3 idiots went to the San Antonio aquarium. They must have been planning this heist because they took a stroller and they ended up using the stroller as the escape vehicle, the getaway vehicle, if you would, for taking their 3-foot shark out of the aquarium, putting it in the stroller. And by the way, people saw this as it was going on, got out the door, clean escape. But they forgot one thing. Yeah, there are cameras everywhere, you dumbasses. And of course, they were caught very soon thereafter. And ironically, you now have a shark that's back in captivity, but alive. Big deal. And now you got the people that took the shark, and the one guy in particular, he's in captivity. So it's kind of ironic. And what is really, I think, the best part about news like this is, number one, the shark was unharmed, or so we heard. Now, that didn't stop people from bitching about the shark having to be in the aquarium in the first place. And that's a whole argument about whether or not we as humans have the right to put animals in captivity for our own, quote, viewing pleasure. I like to say that you have to have a balance, and we're going to get into that. But let me just throw out a couple of the comments that I saw on Facebook and Twitter regarding the sharks. So one guy said that, it's a disgrace and, you should not allow any animals to ever be held in captivity. And you saw all the outrage as far as that goes. But then I like this guy. His Twitter name is Ride All Night. His handle is @RideAllNightYT. And he replied to the USA Today article with the story and said, honestly, if they're able to steal a shark and they got out with the shark, they should be able to keep it. That's an accomplishment on its own. And you know what? That's a pretty good observation. You steal a shark, get out the door. That's pretty crazy. Now, Alex, on the other hand, and his handle was @LEIKTHF. He had an interesting idea. He thought that they should take those 3 folks that were caught on camera stealing the shark, toss them into the shark tank, and for good measure, toss in a couple of buckets of blood. I don't know. You could sell some seats to that event. Man, you could do pay-per-view on that. That would be unbelievable. That would kind of be travel. If I put it in a category of travel, I would probably say that's adventure travel. But let's take it a step further. You could actually take them, Alex, and you could strap something like I don't know, a side of beef to them that's raw, and dump them in the waters off of Cape Town. And they wouldn't last very long. Or, dress them up like a baby seal there. That would even be more interesting. And then we could film it like, Shark Week from the shark cage and see how that goes down. But again, I don't want to step on the Discovery Channel stuff because, we're right around Shark Week, right? So maybe Shark Week and the Discovery Channel motivated these people as they were watching to go out and adopt their own baby shark. And that's what motivated them. And maybe we should protest Discovery and Shark Week. I'm just thinking out loud, because sometimes that's what it seems like when people kind of get crazy about what's happening. So anyway, no, I'm not going to blame Discovery Channel. I'm not blaming Shark Week. Fascinating viewing and some great TV. But man, they should give those folks an IQ test, stealing a shark in a baby stroller and thinking they can get away with it. Now, on the other side of the world, you've got things like elephants in Thailand. And a lot has been happening recently with travel as it pertains to animals. And there are major companies that are now no longer going to do things like elephant rides. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. And what people don't realize is when you protest things like animals at a in a country or on a trip being used for personal tourism and making money, that's wrong. They need to stop it, etc. And I think what those folks don't understand is there are different levels of that. So let's take Thailand for a second. So elephants have a long history in the culture of Thailand. Hundreds of years ago, they were used in battles. Then they were used in industry like logging. And then those things changed. They became mechanized. And the elephants didn't have a place in terms of the work, etc. So they were basically owned by private folks who then, in some cases and in many cases, exploited those animals, abused those animals. And I've seen it, where I've seen elephants where they're chained up and they're obviously not looking good, not being taken care of. And these people are just trying to make money selling, rides and what have you, etc. And, that disgusts me, and I push back on that big time. But I also have been to places where those same animals that are being abused privately are being rescued and brought to an amazing place. One I visited was Anantara. It's a resort that has an elephant sanctuary. And there you as a tourist can become a mahout, sort of. A mahout is a trainer of elephants. It's the word they use. And as a mahout, that mahout bonds with that elephant and is that elephant's basically overseer and protector, etc. Considering that these animals have been taken from a scenario where it was not a positive thing, and they're brought to literally the equivalent of a 5-star resort and taken care of 24/7, their lives have been dramatically improved. Now, what has to happen in order to sustain that kind of sanctuary is you have to have an economic engine, or you have to go beg people to donate money. Now, instead of begging people to donate money and getting charitable gifts to support it, which is fine if you can constantly keep that flow on, but of course there are tens of thousands of charitable opportunities, and the better approach in that scenario, in my opinion, is to use the economy and the fact that you can expose tourists to these unbelievable, amazing animals and do it in an environment that protects the animal and allows the animal to live very comfortably in a very luxurious life going forward. They're not in the wild. I've been to Africa and seen elephants in the wild. That's not the case there. They're either going to be held privately and in some cases abused, or they're going to be brought to these sanctuaries. So now I get back to the economics of it. So a lot of companies in the travel business have come out because it's politically correct and said, well, we're not going to do that anymore. Well, then guess what happens? The places that have been taking care of those animals lose that revenue. Since they lose that revenue, if they can't replace that revenue, the standards will ultimately drop, and they may have to stop doing what they're doing, and we'll have that cycle go back to folks abusing those animals. Because again, if I'm selling one-off things on the street, trips on the street, rides on the street, that's one thing. If I'm in an organized, structured environment, like the travel industry has been doing for decades in different places like Thailand, then that can be a real positive. And unfortunately, I think self-righteous folks make their statements, they protest, they force the hand of some of these travel suppliers, or some of these travel suppliers, to be frank, if you did elephant rides for 30 or 40 years and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, we can't do that anymore. Really? I mean, so did you get a conscience and it was a terrible thing and now all of a sudden it's you just can't do it anymore? Or, and you know the answer to this, you got the pressure, you buckled under the pressure, and hopefully it doesn't negatively impact the folks and the things that were going really, really well in these areas where you've pulled back and said you're not going to do it anymore. I agree, you don't support bad practices. If you were doing that for decades, then that's on you. And I'm glad you came around to your senses. But if you're doing it because of political pressure and people protesting and all this other crap, then, man, you've probably added to the problem. You haven't helped the problem. And we see that in a lot of different areas. We'll address that at some other time. But a lot of different ways folks will protest and object to things, and they don't realize it at the time, but they're actually making things a lot worse. The elephants in Thailand, I would support that. I support tourism with that. And I object when, like on an LA TV station, when I was doing an interview and I wanted to talk about Thailand, I had great footage and they refused to run it because of the producer's self-righteous belief that it was just wrong to exploit these lovely animals. And I'm thinking, well, okay, they were getting exploited. Now they're being taken care of. And because you don't want to put it on because you're so self-righteous, FYI, she's never been, so didn't have a clue, but she certainly had an opinion. That's kind of funny, right? Do you ever notice how many people that have no clue but have a really big opinion as it pertains to that thing they have no clue about? I'm always curious about that. So anyway, I've mused enough on that. Getting back to the sharks. I don't think we're going to throw those guys in a tank or take them down off of Cape Town and throw them in the ocean. But, it's not a bad thought. I think we got to be a little more civil about it and, move on to things like, hey, tracking people. I think we need to track people wherever they go, on planes, airports. We're just going to track them. We don't like the way you look, we're tracking you. What am I talking about? I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about TSA Quiet Skies. Now, you may have heard about it. Maybe you didn't. Folks in the industry certainly know about it. The TSA and Homeland Security have been tracking folks in the air, and the story just came out over the weekend that if you've flown, may have been followed and not known it. And maybe 3 air marshals tracked you coming through security, got on the plane, and flew wherever you were going because there was a sneaking suspicion about you. Or not. We don't know if we've been tracked. We just know that it's a program that's in place. So getting to the social media side again, it's kind of funny because when I look at social media, again, you just want to smack yourself in the forehead and think, are they serious? They can't be serious, right? Here we go. So somebody named Regina Bailey, she put up a comment on Facebook under, I'm pretty sure it was the NBC story, but I might be wrong. But again, it was on one of the major news outlets' pages. And underneath it, she commented, she said, "Are we Russia already? Next, we'll start to see the press being poisoned. Putin already has us tangled up with Benedict Donald doing his dirty work." And then clown faces and all this stuff. And then, let's see. Then we had somebody named Henry Mays. Henry Mays, interesting name. He just commented, "Trump's Nazi SS squad." But then somebody, a little more lighthearted, Michael Langford says, well, maybe they can sell the data to Google and Facebook. Then I can get more nuisance ads. I thought that was good. But here's a little bit of the social media loser angle. It's like, let's never allow anything to stop us from conflating completely unrelated things, as long as it serves whatever our political purpose is. And for Regina and this guy, Hen, or lady, I don't know if it's a hen, chicken, hen, it's an interesting name, but whatever. Now I'm going to, now someone's going to say, oh, how can you say that? It's a traditional XYZ name. Man, I always stick my freaking foot in my mouth. But anyway, so Regina and Hen chicken, hen. No, there I go. They did it again. They want to blame this on the Russians, Putin, Benedict Donald, and referring to Trump's Nazi SS squad. I guess that's TSA and the air marshals. Yeah, it started in 2010, folks. This program, yeah, it started 2010. The president then was Obama. I don't think Hen would be saying it was Obama's Nazi SS squad, and I don't think Regina would be talking about Benedict Donald or Benedict Obama back then, because ironically, the current president, you don't care where you stand politically, had nothing to do with the start of the program. It was updated, started in 2010, updated in 2012, and again modified as recently as March 2018. So yes, it is being done right now under the current president, but it started 8 years ago, folks. 8 years ago. So get a clue. Wake up. And, you know, if you want to start talking politics, I don't know how TSA can be political. Is it a pain in the ass? Yeah, it's a freaking pain in the ass. You know what drives me batshit? I have flown millions of miles, and I have been pre-checked, global entry, fingerprinted. I fly virtually every damn week. And you know what sucks? When I got up this morning to fly down to Florida, 2.5-hour flight from Philadelphia, and I had my boarding pass, and I knew it before I got up because I did the check-in the night before. And sure enough, because I went on one of the earliest flights this morning, I didn't get freaking pre-check. I mean, do you know how annoying that is? So I look and I go, great, no TSA pre-check. So that means I got to get to the freaking airport earlier than usual. Which means I got to get up earlier than usual, and that sucks. But, you know, hey, I could be a terrorist, you know? I mean, you know, maybe this is the flight that I do something crazy on. But that is the dumbest freaking policy I've ever seen. You've got people, you've done the background checks, they fly regularly, everything else, but we're going to go ahead and give them a random check and make them go through the line and take their shoes off. Because if they take their shoes off and their feet smell, maybe that's going to be indicative of something, and we can get a dog or something to sniff it. I mean, seriously, folks, this is where we're at. Sometimes I feel, and I know a lot of people agree with this, they do things to make us feel safer. Now, I didn't feel any safer this morning. I felt freaking annoyed because I had to go from I was going out of Terminal C. That's pre-check only in Philadelphia for you folks not from Philadelphia. I went all the way over to Terminal B because that's where I got to go in order to walk back through the regular check line and get in and walk all the way back again to Terminal C. But when I got to B, the line was basically out across the entire Skyway Bridge to the parking structure, which is about as long as a damn football field. And it was backed up probably 2/3 of the way. So instead, I went all the way over to Terminal A East because that's the little tip, travel tip. If you're flying out of Philadelphia in the morning and you're going out of Terminals B and C and you don't have pre-check, go over to Terminal A. A East does a lot of domestic check-in there for American, but A West is the international terminal. There is almost never a line, especially in the morning. Now, the international stuff in the evening is worse, but that's a little tip. So I did that. I got a little extra exercise. But again, with TSA, that's what we should be bitching about. We shouldn't be talking about freaking Nazi SS squads. There's nothing to do with that. But I really wish they'd get their crap together when it comes to the pre-check, because there's no reason why people like me should have to deal with this crap. And you guys could sit back and say, oh, you know, everyone's got to deal with it. Bullshit. Not everybody. Not when you fly every freaking week, and not when you're going through fingerprinting and a background check and everything else. So just an FYI, guy who flies once a year, too freaking bad. Get there 2 hours early. People like me, I want to get there, I make it 30 minutes, 35 minutes before the flight. That's how it should be. Instead, I was there an hour beforehand, and I still was ended up being in group 6 or something, getting on board the damn plane. But I got my bag up and I was happy. Chilled out, sweating. All right. Now, here's another thing I object to. Let's take here. You know what? This is what the air marshal should be tracking. Have you ever seen people on the plane that take their damn shoes off? Have you guys ever seen that? Well, here's a little tip. When you're sitting in the exit row in the back of the plane, you know, you got you got the one bulkhead exit row on the left side, you know, A, B, and C, and then you got D and E, the two seats, because there's no F, and the row behind you is considered an exit row too. I think it's like 21 and 22, if I remember my numbers properly. Don't book that row behind the two seats that they say is an exit row, because unless you're in the window seat where there's no seat in front of you, it's a crappy exit row seat because there is no extra leg room. The only reason it's an exit row is because there's no window seat in the aisle in front of you. So that's just an FYI. But I was sitting there, and I think it was a flight from Philly to Vegas, and this guy comes walking up the aisle. I look, and he's got no shoes on. He's wearing a pair of shorts and a polo shirt. He's probably in his 50s, little overweight. Looking at him, and I'm going, Jesus Christ, this guy's got his freaking shoes on. I mean, these planes turn around several times a day, flying hundreds of people. In some cases, a couple, 4, 5, 6, 700 people in a day are on these planes, depending on how fast they're getting turned around, and whether it's a short haul flight and back and forth type of route, shuttle type of route. And this guy, it's not like they're in there scrubbing the floors and, making sure it's nice and shiny. I mean, let's face it, man. Who the hell wants to use a bathroom on a plane, let alone walk on the aisle with your bare feet? So this guy comes walking back, and I'm like, oh, that's disgusting. That's just disgusting. And then he stops, and I was like, no, don't do it, man. Don't do it. He pushes the door, because it's diagonal, about a row and a half in front of me, diagonal to the bathroom, and proceeds to walk in with his bare feet to an airplane bathroom. Oh my God, that is just disgusting. Now, in that scenario, I think the air marshals should flag that guy and take him down. Just take him down, and then they should put like little plastic bags with zip ties around his feet to isolate his feet, almost like like a CSI type of thing. Because God only knows what they would find there. I mean, God only knows. Now, if he puts his hands on this stuff and his feet and doesn't wash regularly, then we could probably use this guy as a petri dish to create cultures that will allow us to prevent disease in the future. I mean, seriously, that's how gross we're talking. Again, just a different application to Quiet Skies, but I'd spend my money on that. Feet, disgusting. So I don't travel so I can see people's feet. I don't travel so I can, just ride around on elephants or whatever. I travel to places like Thailand, for instance, because it's the land of smiles and the culture there is just amazing. I love going to places like Thailand. I love Southeast Asia, generally speaking, in terms of the experiences I've had there. I've been all over the world. A lot of places I still have to go. But I've been to Africa, to the Middle East, to Russia. By the way, the one place I really have no interest in going back to, just as an FYI, Moscow. It was the one place I swear I've been. I was like, man, I have zero interest in ever going back there. Now, I'd love to go see St. Petersburg, but didn't make it on that trip, and that's still on the bucket list. But anyway, so why do we travel? We travel in some cases just to relax. Every year, typically at the end of the year, early January, I go away with a large family group, and then I need because I'm busy. Like this time of year, it starts to get nuts. And for the next 4 months, I run like 150 miles an hour. And then at the end of the year, it's the whole get the family and siblings and nieces, nephews, etc. all together, and we all go down to Mexico. I've been doing that for, I guess this will be like our 10th year in a row. I'm going down the Cancun, Riviera Maya area, doing different resorts. Well, here's what's crazy. After that, I need a damn vacation, because you know what? That ain't a vacation, hanging out with a bunch of freaking relatives. When I go on vacation, part of what I want to do at the end of like a crazy period, I just want to relax. That means I want my Kindle. By the way, I love my Kindle Oasis because it's waterproof. Just a side note, if you're a big reader, get the Kindle Paperwhite or the Kindle Oasis if you're going to be in water. Not that Irish guys should be out in the sun, like hanging out in the pool too much. But if I can find shade and be near water, then I can use my Oasis, not have to worry about it getting ruined. But anyway, we relax, we recharge. We go for a lot of reasons. And I think one of the biggest reasons people travel. I know one of the biggest reasons I travel, internationally or even domestically is to experience different people, cultures, have different types of experiences, etc. And, I think that that's a big part of life. It's really cool when you're a kid growing up and you go visit a family as a young kid, and that family has parents from, let's say, I don't know, Italy, and you're like, man, it's all about the food, and it's all about, the family together, and, Sundays are big freaking days. And a buddy of mine, Nick Antonicella, I haven't seen him in a while. I got to get out to LA, but, he's talking about making the gravy, and I'm like, what the hell's gravy, man? Because like my mom couldn't cook for shit, but that's the Irish part of us. And sorry, I just insulted Irish people, but it wasn't like growing up in my house. It wasn't a foodie paradise. It was literally pot roast, and I think the best thing my mom ever made was like oven brown potatoes. That was about it. Frozen this, canned that. But you go to these other places, man, and they're making amazing stuff. And so I always thought that was like really cool. It's like a different world. And then you go overseas, or you go to different big cities, and you go into their different ethnic areas, and you can do this in New York City and so many different places. And it's an awesome experience. So you don't really have to go that far from where you are right now to get a really interesting cultural experience. But be careful. Be warned. Here's why. You are on the verge of appropriating somebody's culture. Yeah, I said it. Cultural appropriation is not okay. Now, again, cultural appropriation. So I've been reading stuff lately, and I'm thinking, I do travel, and I'm seeing stories about how people are appropriating the culture of other people by certain things they do. Now, if you get into the politics, some lady, I don't even know what the heck she does. Maybe she's the HHS secretary, whoever it was. Somebody in Trump's cabinet or whatever. She was eating in a Mexican restaurant, and so it was the whole the separations at the border, and they're screaming, "How dare you eat at a Mexican restaurant?" So now all of a sudden you can't eat certain food based on your political leanings. So if you believe in putting up a border wall, you can't eat in a Mexican restaurant. That's how crazy things have gotten. But I can understand sort of the passion there and how people are feeling about that, and throwing out something stupid because, again, it wasn't scripted, but I was hearing these protesters screaming and yelling. I was thinking, wow, that's kind of nuts. You can't, and all of a sudden, if I believe in a certain thing, I can't do the other thing. Now, if you extend it out and you look at what's going on in Portland, now Portland's not exactly a conservative place. It's a fun, crazy place, quirky, etc. But I read an opinion piece called "Would You Like Some Strife with Your Meal?" And it was a couple of months ago. And it left me shaking my head. It was in the Wall Street Journal, and it was from somebody who grew up there, who moved to California and came back. Andy, I can't remember the last name, but a few things he had written about just kind of shocked me. And one of them was a restaurant called Saffron Colonial. And what they were doing was they were serving recipes historical recipes based on the British Empire. And the protesters came out in droves, and ultimately the owner of this restaurant, she was basically being shut down for the most part because the idea of serving colonial heritage or colonial history, based on the British Empire, serving recipes associated with that was, somehow horrific. And I'm thinking, well, no, that's the history. That's kind of interesting. I would think that would be interesting. That would be like going to Gettysburg and seeing the battlefields, or going down, to Mississippi and doing the same thing, and just like World War II history, and going to Normandy, and you can go ahead and do these things, and you're not doing anything except experiencing what was going on for that period of time. There's something called Medieval Times. It's one of those dinner theaters where they do the whole jousting and all that. I've never been, but somehow is somebody going to shut down the medieval times because of, what happened during that era to some group of people? I mean, that's freaking nuts. But didn't stop protesters from coming out when two women decided that they loved to make burritos, and they got some recipe together to make burritos, and they bought a truck and they started selling them with a lot of success. But then as soon as people found out that they were white women, all of a sudden you can't be serving burritos and making burritos if you're not, I guess, Mexican. I mean, again, that business had to shut down. Some of these businesses have gotten death threats. That is a real problem, especially when it comes to travel, because we travel in many cases to experience other cultures. So you got to ask yourself, if you can't make a burrito, eat in a Mexican restaurant, or create a restaurant around recipes from a bygone era, do you have to start fresh? What's kind of funny is, everything from a girl wearing a traditional Chinese dress that people got all upset about, appropriating their culture. In my opinion, she was honoring their culture. Nobody's appropriating their culture. If you straighten your hair as an African-American woman, you're not appropriating somebody else's culture. And in my opinion, if somebody does cornrows, they're not appropriating somebody else's culture in that sense. So, African-American culture. So, I'm Irish, and I'm like a majority Irish, and then a whole mix of a bunch of other stuff. And I won't bore you with my DNA registry, and my ancestry test, but, the joke for Irish people is everybody's Irish on St. Paddy's Day, right? So, what the hell? I mean, should I be out there protesting? How dare you wear green? How dare you? You don't look like a leprechaun. That's crazy. No, man. I want people to celebrate Irish culture. I want people, when they travel, to bring back memorabilia. Ideally, I want them to bring back memorabilia that positively impacts the culture there. And I'll give you an example. I went to Cambodia, Angkor Wat. They have Artisans de Angkor, which is a community where they bring in budding artists. And some of these people are blind and deaf, but they have a talent, and they create things and they teach them there. And if they want, they can go back to their village and continue to build out additional artists and help others learn their craft, etc., and create a business out of it and positively impact their village economically, or they can choose to stay there. Well, I was amazed. We were there filming this. I was actually absolutely blown away by the things these folks were creating. And today I have it's about 6 feet tall, a female Buddha statue that was carved from a single piece of wood in my house. And it reminds me of that trip. It reminds me of the peace that the country has seen recently, as opposed to the carnage it saw for decades under Pol Pot. And it's a reminder of that trip. It's a reminder of the horrors I saw. It's a reminder of the amazing things I saw with this artisan community. And by doing that and buying it, I felt like I was able to give back. Now, there are some people that would say I'm appropriating that culture. I'm appropriating that religion because I am not a Buddhist. But no, I'm not. I'm actually honoring it. And I think that's how we have to look at travel. We have to look at it as we can honor other cultures and other experiences. And I think every time you travel, you do that. So when people tell me, is it safe to go to Mexico? I can tell you, yes, it is safe to go to Mexico. I've been to Mexico 6 times this year. I'm taking my whole company there next week. We don't have a death wish, but you have to be smart about where you go in places like Mexico. And while there, we're going to drink tequila. We're going to have a good time. We're going to listen to great music. And I hope that some of the people that have never been, that work in my company, and there's plenty of inside folks that haven't been to Mexico yet, that when they go there and they experience the warmth and the culture, they want to bring a piece of that back with them. And that worst case, they're going to bring that memory back. And if they want to buy a freaking sombrero and celebrate Cinco de Mayo next year and have a fun party that's Mexican themed, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's no different than celebrating St. Paddy's Day if you're not Irish. So if you're looking for travel deals, now would be a good time. If you're thinking about going to Mexico, now would be a great time to look at it, because airfares have dropped. Prices for all-inclusive resorts have dropped. you're going to get the best values starting around a little after August 20th, pretty much all the way to Thanksgiving, and then the gap between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And if you want to stay and go in and out of a port in the U.S., I would look at some of the Norwegian Cruise Line sailings out of Miami. I would look at some of the Royal Caribbean sailings. I would look at a cruise line called MSC. They have a new ship called the Seaside that's a really amazing design. They're great, inexpensive, value-packed experiences on these cruise ships that you can enjoy in many cases for under $500 per person for a 7-night trip, where you still have to pay gratuities on top and some port charges, but the only other thing you'll be paying for is your alcohol. So just don't drink a lot. Great value, or drink a lot and drink your savings up, whatever you want to do. But if you check out Travel Pulse on YouTube, you'll see a segment I did on Fox 29 Philly, and I talked about that. And I also talked about the Margaritaville Hollywood Beach Resort, which is right down the road from where I'm at right now in Fort Lauderdale. It's an amazing resort, just so much to do. And the great thing about where it's located is you can fly into Fort Lauderdale Airport, one of the easiest and best airports to fly in and out of, really inexpensive right now. And you can go and stay at this beach resort for under $200 a night. You don't need to rent a car. You can walk everywhere. There's a huge boardwalk there. One of the best boardwalks in the country is in Hollywood, Florida. And then you can never leave the property, or you can go walk out, and there's so many options around you. You won't get bored. It's an awesome, 3-4 night type of experience. Or come down and spend a little more time, and then hop on a cruise and take a cruise around the Caribbean while you're here. But anyway, those are some ideas. I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. I'll be back with you next week, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of fodder for me to dive into, as there always is. Until then.